On today's episode, we have with us Anna Zulian. Anna is a professional photographer, and she works with brands, creatives, and individuals to help create phenomenal fashion campaigns, personal branding portraits, and editorial content that really stands out to tell a story. She also has a background in psychology that she leverages to help her clients define the story that they're trying to communicate to their target audience. And I have personally worked with Anna, and I can attest to her abilities to helping you create your vision and making it come to life, especially when it comes to creating photographs that best represent your personal brand. So, Anna, thank you so much for being here with me today. And I'm going to start off with a question that I think many of us are curious about. We sometimes might even think to ourselves, why do we like to take photos of ourselves?
So to be honest, I'm not even sure if people like to be photographed because sometimes they do it not because they want it, because they have to, like for professional needs or for to make family memories. Sometimes they put pressure on themselves, like every picture has to be perfect, like every pose has to be perfect, and then they overthink a lot, like where do I put my hands, where do I look, and they're always like so much stress. Honestly, I remember my first experience was awful. Like I remember that I didn't know what to do. I couldn't relax. I was so lost. And I remember that the photographer was telling me like, "Okay, just do something. Okay, just relax." And I didn't just know how to relax. I didn't know how to do something. So I just put my hands into the pockets. And when she asked to change the pose, I just put them in another pockets. And so of course it was horrible. And I decided that taking pictures is not for me at all. And then eventually my another friend turned to be photographer as well, and she asked to take my portraits, and I was like, no, 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 this is not my thing, not my thing. And then she said like, okay, what's going on here? And I was like, okay, I had a shooting once and it was so horrible. I couldn't remove the hands from my pockets. I was so tense and so stressful. And she said like, no, come on, I will guide you. You will be relaxed. You're gonna enjoy and everything. And if you can't remove hands from your pockets, I will Photoshop them out. And I was like, okay, that sounds good. And that changed everything. I really enjoyed the whole process. It was like amazing experience. And afterwards, she became my first photography teacher that gave me, I think, that skill how to make people comfortable and make them relax in the camera.
Thank you so much for sharing that because you mentioned taking the portrait, right?
Yeah,
And immediately when I think of portrait, for some reason, my mind goes to LinkedIn,
yeah,
right? It's sometimes the same portrait with the neutral blazer, and you're posing as if you're taking a passport photo, right?
yeah.
And the advice that you were given was, to relax, to just show up, and the photo will speak for itself when you're in that energy, right? So, for professionals today, when they're trying to build a personal brand online, they want to be professional, but they still want to be authentic. What, where do they even begin, right? If I was a young professional today, how do I go about curating an image that shows who I am and communicates to others that I'm open to opportunities?
So I think if you don't have flexibility to be creative, then the neutral portrait for LinkedIn is totally fine. But if you are trying to build a strong personal brand and you need pictures not just for LinkedIn, but for social media, for websites, any kind of platforms, I think you should go deeper and ask yourself questions like what I want to show, how the client's supposed to see me, which values I can show through the pictures and everything. Like, for example, I had a client and she was creating a perfume, and she's from Greece, and she was collecting the uh, rare herbs for her perfume in the mountains. And I think this is such an interesting story that deserves not to be just black and white studio minimalistic picture. So I offered her to make a shooting in the botanic garden or in the museum with the statues from ancient Greece. And I think this is the way it should be. Like, the storytelling has to be like a strong instrument for your personal brand, because pictures are not just images. This
Mm.
is a way of communication.
I really like that approach because that is exactly the question that you need to ask yourself. What am I trying to communicate through my personal brand? And for a lot of us, we want to be able to communicate trust, right? So, as a professional photographer, What are some techniques or what do you think works really well in terms of how a person is posing or where they're taking their photos to communicate more trust to their audience?
So I think for that we have to question ourselves, how do we start to trust in real life? Like, what do you think?
That's an interesting question. And for me, the biggest part of trust is consistency. If I see someone's actions, how they appear, how they present themselves consistent, then I automatically start to believe that I can trust that person. But you know what? Even behind an image, you can feel the essence. So, for example, before I had made the decision to work with you, I had looked at the portfolios of a lot of other photographers. But there was something warm about the images that you were creating. Although they were very high fashion, editorial, and sometimes, I'll be honest, that type of content can feel very cold.
Hmm.
It feels very artistic, but it feels distant, right? Something about your portfolio that's very warm that made me feel like, okay, I can trust this person. I feel it
Okay,
through the images.
that's good to know.
So that would be my response there because even when you're trying to curate this perfect image online, it might look perfect, but the audience can still sense some distance and
Yeah.
they can feel the warmth versus feeling cold.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And for me, it's a good reminder that I have to um, show myself more often because it's not only about my work, but about the person who the clients would work with. But coming back to the pictures, I think we also trust when we see the person like in life, like natural, like open, when the pose is open, when the person is relaxed and smiling, and I think this is very important. And I think for that, you really have to trust your photographer. And it's a job of photographer to make the totally cool and nice atmosphere, and like, I don't know, I use some tricks for that, like talking with your client in the middle. If you see that somebody's frozen, you start to make jokes to, they make the vibe more light and to help them to relax. Also, I like to ask the clients to put their favorite music because their own playlist make them also feel, safe, comfortable, and everything. So once you get pictures when you are you, but not you're like that, but like you are now, that creates trust. That's for sure.
Amazing. And you know what? You bring up a really good point because the relationship that you have with your photographer is so important.
Yeah,
Okay. And your photographer is supposed to help you bring that natural essence
absolutely.
out,
Yeah.
right? That is a part of their role, or at
Yeah,
least,
absolutely,
a good
100%.
photographer.
100%. It's not that you as a client not obliged to be good as a professional model. It's 100% true. Nobody can post like this. First, it's difficult. If you take pictures with someone you see the first time, it's natural that you're a bit. It feels a bit awkward, Plus, we don't pose in real life every day. We don't think like, oh, should I stay like this? Like, you're just natural. And I always say that we are naturally beautiful. Like, if you're like, I don't take camera in my hands and I look at you now, like, look at your pose, how relaxed you are, how nice you sit, like your body language is just perfect, But as soon as I take camera in my hands, we're like that. So it's totally the responsibility of the photographer to make you feel safe like you are now.
And it's very interesting what you say about, freezing up and looking natural. And that can come off the way that you're smiling, right?
Yeah.
And so when we look at photos of a certain smile, whether, it's an open mouth smile, half a smile, whatever it might be, do you believe that makes a difference in the way that someone is trying to build trust? Like, does a type of smile make a difference to make someone trust you more versus trust you less?
For me, it's the same. Like we talked about, the trust is about being relaxed, and also if the person looks natural, like you are smiling to me now, that would be perfect. So I have some tricks to make people look more relaxed because it's just like little moments like body language. It talks, And for example, if we are tense, if we are not relaxed, our jaw looks a bit, like closed. And on the pictures, we don't like when we see ourselves like that. So I normally ask clients, it's like little like fact, to breathe with your lips. And sometimes from time to time, you can keep it open, just like you said, apple.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is the
So
trick.
yeah, and then it makes you feel more like relaxed, and then you give the signal through the picture that you're like cool, friendly, and everybody wants to work with you, and people like you through the pictures and things like that. So try Apple.
So we've talked about what works really well, but what doesn't necessarily work well? Like, what do you think are the common mistakes that people go into a photo shoot and they're automatically doing, but they don't realize that
Mm-hmm.
they're taking away from their credibility or they're taking away from their authenticity?
I think it's not what they automatically doing. I think it's something that they do before they come to photo. Like the mistakes that I was doing as a photographer in the very beginning of my career. To help people to pose nicely, I was preparing the references. Like I was showing the examples of the posing they have to do. And it was one of the most awkward things because I show and then they see it and maybe it's not natural for them or it's not comfortable for them. And until I get to the point that people have to be themselves, I just have to make the right vibe for that. I was given this posing, and it wasn't just cool. It just wasn't cool. But it was a long time ago. So, and the second thing is when people also take like references, for example, for outfits. Like, okay, I need a photo shoot in a studio, so I put in Pinterest like photo shoot for a girl in a studio, and then I see the outfits that everybody does, and I was like, oh, okay, it has to be a suit. Oh, okay, it has to be a jeans and white t-shirt. So it doesn't come from yourself, from your needs, from your style, and it comes from copying someone. So I would say that the big, not the biggest mistake, but a common mistake, yeah, is try to copy someone because it just sometimes doesn't look right and doesn't reflect you. And even pictures, if you copy someone, then like 1 year after, 2 years after, you will look at them and you will say like, you know. But if you did something that was like really you, even years after, you're like, oh yeah, that was good, you know. So I will ask you everybody to like to not try to copy anybody. You can get inspiration, but try to think about what would be the best option for you, and you can get help from the photographer, like ask for tips or anything, but try being yourself. It sounds very, you know, like simple, but it's important things to do.
You bring up a really good point about getting inspiration from other people. And sometimes we might take inspiration a little bit too far and just start copying other people, right?
Yeah.
Thinking if it works for them, it'll work for me. But we are completely different people. And naturally, that is what makes us stand out because there's only one of us. So, if someone is trying to create a personal brand that really stands out, what are the types of things that they need to work on? It might be mindset shifts, it might be their approach. How do you help people understand that the way to build a standout brand is not necessarily through copying, but really just enhancing who you are and communicating that online?
So I basically ask these questions like who you are, what do you want to show? Because yes, pictures can tell a lot about you. And if I consider the whole story of the client and what the client wants to talk about, their values, the mission. I had a client and she needed the pictures for the article about her that would go spread like in international magazines, and we were talking that she wants to show her origin, she wants to show the city where she grew up and everything. And like that, me and my team, we created the whole art directed story. We considered everything like locations, outfits, lightning, like everything would tell the story about this lady, you know, not just the words in the article. So I think this is very important. If you don't want to be just copy from Pinterest, you know, somebody else's picture, you have to go deeper. You have to ask these questions, you know, like what do I want to show? What people want to see when they look at this, you know, why they want to work with me? And when people will look at this picture in like half a second, they will think like, this is her, I want to work with her. I think that's the way it should be.
Thank you so much for that answer. And it's exciting to hear, right? Because ultimately, you have a vision in mind, right? And sometimes it does take a team of people to help
Yeah,
pull that together,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Sometimes it does take a second look from someone else, another professional, right? Who might be a creative director, who might be a makeup artist, who might have wardrobe specialties, right? To help bring your vision to life. And it is absolutely an investment in yourself, right? It's a personal branding investment. But that is the value of being able to consult the professionals in this space to be able to help you get that vision out there.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And me, myself, I just came to the same point that I have a profile picture. Maybe when you watch this, it will be changed already. We don't know. That doesn't show who I am. That I talk to my clients and say, no, the picture has to show who you are. We have to do the great job and everything. And then I realized, oh, mine doesn't do that. So I'm working on that too. And I understand how much it changes when you work with a team. And then when my team started to help myself, like the with the outfits, with the makeup, with the idea, with the location, I was like, wow, people will look at me and they say, yes, this is a fashion photographer. And I think this is where it should be, like when they look at your pictures and they understand better who you are, and they will help to make the first step. Why do I want to work with you? Why do I choose you over the other professionals and everything? Yeah, I think it's very important.
That's a really interesting personal reflection because when I first looked at your photo, I had a different perspective, right? As a member of the external audience,
Hmm.
I thought, yeah, this is a photo of a fashion photographer.
Okay.
I think that we look at ourselves differently than
Yeah,
other people,
sure.
right? But I think that's why it's so important, right? Like how you're coming off, what your photos are communicating. Other people can perceive that differently
Yeah.
than you. So it's very interesting how we look at ourselves versus how our audience might be looking at us.
Exactly, 100%. No, it's just I think that we change through time, and this updates is always good because you are not who you've been like 5, 10 years ago, personally or professionally, and maybe you just have to look at your picture yourself and think like, yes, this is me. Like people look at that and they understand who I am.
You bring up a really good point because your personal brand is not set in stone. You are allowed to change it. You're allowed to
Exactly,
rebrand. That's
absolutely.
absolutely the point. Thank you so much for sharing so many great reflections today. Is there anything else that you believe the audience needs to hear in terms of personal branding, creating the photos, creating the vision, or anything else that's related to communicating who they are to an audience that they're trying to reach?
I just want to encourage everybody to be brave, to not be shy, to stand out, to be different, to speak louder, and things like that. Because sometimes we are waiting for a special moment, like, "Oh, I will achieve that, and then I will send an article to the magazine about myself or something like this." But I want to encourage everybody, like, let's show ourselves, let's be visible, like, let's do things that others don't do yet. Let be the first who does something different, and I really love that. And uh, I love that I have an option to help people with that express themselves. I wish everybody to not wait for a special moment and just do it, like create a personal brand, be visible, will achieve everything you want to achieve.
I love what you said about there's no perfect moment. So you might as well start building your personal brand today. And if you want to take your personal branding seriously, it's absolutely okay to get external help, right? Whether it's from a photographer, whether it's from another creative professional in the field, to just help guide your decision making or to bring clarity to what you're trying to communicate, right? In terms of who you are and the brand you're trying to build. But the most important thing is you don't have to wait. If you want to take that chance on yourself, take the chance on yourself.
No, I totally agree. That's 100%. And I think to get help is important because sometimes our superpower for us is too obvious, and we take it that it's something that doesn't need to be shown because you just have it. There is nothing special. You don't see it as something special. Other people can enhance that because the obvious things for us are not obvious for others. And many, many examples when somebody else helped make a big step in the career or creating their personal brand or to see what is your superpower, like we are better together, So yeah,
Absolutely.
that's absolutely, I totally agree.
And I think that any professional help you get in creating your personal brand is supposed to do that. It's supposed to enhance what you already have. And it's supposed to point out what you don't see for yourself, right? Because going back to what we were talking about earlier, we're not able to see ourselves the way that other people are able to see us,
Totally
right?
agree. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Anna, thank you so much for being here with me today. I really enjoyed our conversation and I really appreciated all of the insights that you shared about personal branding, the approach that you need to take, and the questions that we need to ask ourselves about what we're trying to communicate to others.
Thank you for inviting me. It was really a very pleasant conversation.
Of course, thank you so much. And for those of you interested in working with Anna, I will leave all of the details in the description below.